Hundreds of parents may have already been deported by the Trump administration without their children. That is according to court filings. The mothers and fathers are currently not in the United States, but their kids are still in U.S. custody. The Trump administration has until Thursday to reunite all the families it separated at the border under its so-called zero-tolerance policy. Nick Miroff has been following this for the Washington Post, and he joins us now. Nick, where have these parents been sent? Is that the big question here?
That is the big question. In yesterday's court filing, there was only one line indicating that these 463 parents are no longer in the United States. That means that they have either been deported or they left the country some other way. But I think we can safely assume that the vast majority are in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Those are the three countries that most of these migrant families have come from. And
do we know if there have been any attempts on the part of the U.S. government to reach out to those governments and try to locate these individuals? I would imagine that is extremely hard to do.
It is. The Department of Health and Human Services says it is working with the consulates from those countries to locate parents whose children are still in the United States and help facilitate these reunions. I think, if anything, what last night's court filing shows is that this process is going to take a lot longer than a month, and that the government is going to be at this for a while.
And are the numbers shifting? Because you write, the progress report cautioned these cases are under review, meaning that this might not be a definitive tally. Is it safe to say that many more migrants have been deported without their kids?
I don't think it's likely to be many more, and it's not entirely clear that this is a firm count of how many were deported without their kids. We're expecting more information today at a court hearing scheduled for 6 p.m. Eastern time. But I think that it's possible that those numbers will go up. They could also go down. But this is our first real glimpse at a rough estimate of how many parents were sent back without their kids.
And the Trump administration was given 30 days to bring these kids back to their parents. The deadline is Thursday. Do we know how many families have been reunited so far?
Yes. The government said yesterday that it has reunited 879 parents with their children. There's another 538 who have been cleared for reunions but are awaiting transportation. I think we can safely assume that by Thursday's deadline, they'll have reunited about 1,400 of the 2,500 parents who were separated from their kids. The other 1,100 or so are gonna take longer.
Do we know what the holdup has been with the kids and the parents that are actually here on U.S. soil? Why haven't more been brought together?
Right. Well, keep in mind what the judge ordered the government to do is to give the parents whose cases don't present any red flags, for whom the government doesn't have any serious concerns, give them their kids back as soon as possible. And so the government has essentially tried to do that in the first month while separating this other group of parents whose cases are more complicated. Maybe because the parent has a serious criminal conviction, or the parent is already been deported, as we've discussed, or there's some other circumstance that prevents a quick reunion.
Now, we do know that 130, I believe, have opted out of being reunited with their kids, but that's because they know where their kids are and they have safely seen them off to relatives, correct? They would rather have them live with relatives in the U.S. than be sent back with the parents to wherever they came. Is that correct?
That's right. The final stage before a reunion is the government says it's interviewing the parents who are in U.S. immigration jails to ask them, do you want to be reunited with your child? And for some of these parents who know that they will be deported, they are saying no, presumably, and we have seen this in some cases, because they would prefer the child to remain in the United States with a relative.
Right.
I can't say that this is happening more with teenagers or what age those children might be, but this is part of that broader group.
Sure, and it's understandable once you know where your child is and once you know that child is safely with a relative. That's a big difference than not knowing where your child is. All right, Nick Miroff, thank you so much for your insight today.
My pleasure, anytime.